Hello and welcome to MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. Very, very happy that this is going to be a podcast that will come out in both video and the audio platforms and formats. And even more happy is that I have with me today someone I hold very dear to me and, high in respect also, because this singular gentleman is the single most awarded leader in the media, marketing, advertising space, enterprise space, one of the best and I would say greatest enablers in the space across for professionals, not just in India, but globally also. Uh, Very, very self-effacing. The branches that bear the maximum fruit are the ones that really bow very low to the ground, and that's his humility. But what always shines through everything that he says and does is the smile in his heart and his desire to help and empower. My dear friend, Ramesh Narayan. Ramesh, welcome to this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast.
Thank you, Pawan. And a kind introduction, I must say. Overwhelming also. Thank you very much. Lovely to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ramesh. Thanks for the time. Ramesh, Media Brief is about news, and since we are about news and we need a news peg, the latest news peg was what I was delighted to send to everybody on my WhatsApp connects yesterday, last evening, so people can place when we are recording this episode today. The news was about yet another golden feather in your feathers-studded cap. The Asian Federation of Advertising Associations, AFA, unanimously deciding to confer the Honorary Life Member Award on, as they called it, industry doyen Ramesh Narayan. So, Ramesh, what did you think about receiving yet another award?
As I always say, it's nice to have all this acknowledgement, but I think it's important to work in a way where you have to do whatever you do, immerse yourself in your work, try to give all the best that you can give. And I can assure you that all this recognition and all that will actually, court you. As long as you don't do work hoping to get those awards.
Lovely, lovely. And, I must say that you'd also mentioned that, and I quote from our report that, Ramesh said, I accept this recognition with humility. And that's the first quality that always strikes me about you. And you also said you're grateful to all those who helped you serve the industry in various capacities all these years. So, see, Ramesh, you are like the tiny tip of an iceberg that I see, and the iceberg is gigantic, right? So, the whole point of this conversation with you is to bring out insights that will help youngsters and your peers and, everybody across the spectrum alike. So, I want you to tell me first, a little bit about your journey in your words. Okay, we also serialized your amazing book, which I'll put a link to in the post also. But still, please tell me a little bit, walk us through your journey so far. And you'll need the back of a massive 6 feet by 8 feet envelope even to give me a tiny little outline. But please go ahead and make it short, but it's telling and compelling anyways. So tell us about your journey so far, Ramesh. Very, very important.
As I always say, I was not, one of those education, loving people. So I was not, qualified to either be, an MBA or some mass communications or any of those. I just love to write. And in my holidays also, actually, college holidays, I used to work as a kind of, cub reporter in the Indian Express. I did that, I think, 4 times. And by a strange, kind of a fluke, after my education was over and all that, I had a call, from the Express chief reporter once on a Sunday. And he said, what are you doing, Ramesh? So I said, I'm at home. So he said, look, the guy who I had to interview this man is not there, or he's not well or something. So would you mind, stepping in? He's the information minister of Bahrain. and he's there at the Taj, and I'd like you to interview him. So hurry up and run. So I did. Now, at that place there, after the interview, there was a call to this honorable minister. And I could hear him saying, "Oh, that's so sad, Mr. Jain. I was, hoping to see one really good, printing press and all that, but it's all right. It's okay." And he put the phone down. So I asked him, I said, you know, was that, Times of India, Jain? So he said, yes. I was so keen to see a nice newspaper and, how it works and all that. So I said, but then, why don't you come to the Indian Express? It's even more, modern, because at that time, the Indian Express was already on an offset and the Times was still in hot metal. So I said, come along to the Express. So he said, protocol, I can't just come. I have to be invited by the head of the organization. So I just, called up the operator at the Indian Express and I said, in a very authoritative way, I said, I'd like to speak to Ramesh Narayan here. He thought it's my dad, C.A. Narayan. So they said, sure, sir. And he was on the line. And I explained this to him and he said, yes, of course, put him on the line. And he asked him to come. In short, 1 week after that, the editor of the Express, at that time, Karlekar, calls me to his room and says, do you know about newspaper, protocol or not? So I said to him, what happened? So he says, normally, invitations to all these people here in our organization, correspondents, come to the editor. And the editor then, says whether he is free or who is free or, who is the best person. I have an invitation from the minister of Bahrain inviting you to come to Bahrain for a week. So, what is all this about? So I explained the whole thing to him. But I said, I'm quite happy to say that I'm not free because I am not even your employee. So he said, no, Ramesh, you go. Okay? So you go. So only thing is that I happened to mention this to my dad, who said, okay, you think newsprint is like free here or what? All you guys go off on these junkets and you write some stuff. So you see whether you can get any ads also, and we'll do something about it. Okay, supplement. I didn't have a clue about it. So I was handed over one rate card and I went a week there, happened to meet even the emir there, interviewed him, came back, 4-page supplement. And then I said, I'd like to join the Indian Express. So I told Karlekar that I would like to join you, I would like to join in your office as a correspondent. So he said, correspondent? You're a kid there. You can join as a reporter. Okay? And then we'll see. But since your father's on the board of directors, there are some compliance issues which we'll have to do, which I'll do. So the next day, I was asked to come to meet Ramnath Goenka, who, as you know, does not meet, reporters and, smaller employees. And he said, I heard about all this, Ramesh. I also saw the ads that you got. So, you can join the ad department. No. So I said, I refuse to join the ad department. I want to write. And so I told my dad, I said, look, this is absurd. So he said, in those days, okay, this is like 83. He said, you know what? Honestly, at this time, journalists are not at all paid well. And I see that you enjoy these like good things in life. So if you join here as a writer, journalist, you will either be an absolutely miserable guy, or a very corrupt guy. And I don't want either of those. So why don't you write a copy here? I hear these ad agencies pay well. And so I thought about the advertising industry. I knew that I was eminently unemployable. So I said, I'll start my own agency. And I did.
Amazing. How old were you?
84 means I was about 27 or 26.
And that's when you started your agency.
Yeah.
And which has
That's
gone
about
on
job.
to do so brilliantly well that, it's like a benchmark for everyone. Any startup, even today, when he or she wants to, founder or starter up, they want to start something, they should actually go and read that beautiful tiny little book that you've written. Amazing, which we see realized also. But first tell me, just harking back to your story, because in this narrative is a truckload of inspiration for everybody, including me. How old were you when you did your when you were kind of thrown into the fire, baptized by fire, when you were told, okay, my regular reporter hasn't come, correspondent, why did you go and meet the Honorable Minister of Bahrain? When was that? How old were you
25 or so. You see,
Wow.
in between, I spent 2 years in Aurangabad, turning
Okay, doing
around
what?
one loss making tennis ball manufacturing unit that was there in the family.
Oh, okay.
So after that, I said I don't like manufacturing. I have now turned it around. So we actually sold the company. The family earned a little money out of it also. Then this whole thing started.
Wow. And then Canco India was founded.
So Canco was, I think, the only advertising agency to start or to open its doors without an account.
Wow. Cockiness or ignorance or just sheer bloody confidence?
No. The only thing that my father has ever said about me was, he said, you are not ambitious.
Oh.
And I'm not ambitious. And I have always taken every day as it comes. And I have been as a kind of fatalist. So I feel that what is to be will be. I will do my best. All the rest is not in my hands. I won't fret about it.
Wow. That's like taking initiative while trying to navigate whatever seas you find yourself in. It's a bit of an oxymoron, but amazing attitude always to have, because it just keeps you positive in every circumstance, frankly.
Yeah. So I think positivity is an important thing. And as long as you aren't saying, oh God, I have to do this, I have to earn that, I have to get this and all these things, whatever comes your way is good. And you smile.
Yeah. And like you said, encomiums and rewards and everything will follow if your effort is absolutely honest and on point, focused. Wonderful. And you also said when you received this AFA nomination and actually, being made an honorary lifetime member, you said that, most importantly, when I quote you, you said, I'm blessed to have been able to build strong relationships around the world due to the industry associations that you have empowered. So before we go on to the industry associations that you've empowered, and you've done amazing work across all, received lifetime achievement awards, received so much. But before that, tell me, what is the secret to building strong relationships? I want this episode to be full of guidance and insights for everybody who listens to it. So please.
Let me first say that, whatever I have done, and many people, kindly say things about the stuff I've done, is actually all on account of my friends. It's all on account of my friends. And other people, I think, recognize this, because in my Hall of Fame, citation, it ends with the fact that I know how to make friends or and influence people, which I of course didn't take as a great compliment, but how to make friends, yes.
You only a person who's amazing at his work delivers and is able to be effective and impactful and considerate and knowledgeable. I think your work attracts the best people and they remain your friends, right? Nobody comes to you just because they like your turn of phrase or whatever, because your friendships, as I have seen, I go to any event anywhere, I speak about you, refer to you, even without any, just Ramesh and Narayan, and people know exactly who you are and they like. So essentially, and one more thing I want to add here for my viewers and listeners is that uh, you know Ramesh has been described as, in this phrase, in the sentence, it says the most awarded person in India in our space, okay, is also the most shy. So that shyness, I think, is more of humility than being shy, because when you have to say your stuff, you're right up there and you thunder like Rabelais. So now please go ahead. Tell me, how do you make your friends, the relationships, how have they stood by you? Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure what comes first. However, I know that in my early days in the advertising industry, I used to love to go for all these advertising kind of conferences, workshops, seminars, because as I said, I was not educated about the advertising industry. So I used to learn from all these things.
Okay,
And interestingly, if I had to go, for an ad Asia, for example, say in the year 1997, when I was a rookie, I used to be in the hall along with a diary and a pen.
okay,
And I used to note down everything. And seeing me once, a guy from the Indian Express said, why don't you send us, daily, reports on the day at the ad Asia? I was quite excited. I said, yes, I'll do that. My, evenings entertainment, of course, ended with that. Because I had to sit and write every evening. And all
okay,
the rest were like, partying there. You know, and I loved writing. So through the advertising uh, agency life, I used to have, columns in the Indian Express, Business India, Indo Business Line, you know, in all these. So in fact, in the Indian Express, they had said at that time that, look, you're far too, young. What they meant was, junior, to have your own, column and to write about advertising and to comment about ads and all. So do you mind if we have one kind of pseudonym for you? I said okay. Now there itself, I was not all that keen that people should know that I'm a writer. I had to write. Okay, so there was some AAREN and all that, which in those days nobody would know who is AAREN. They all thought it was an outdoor company. So uh, after another editor came in many years later, actually, Kamalendra Kanwar came as the editor, and he said, "Look, in how many years have you been, contributing?" I said, "Some 3-4 years." He said, "Okay," and the next week it had my name as a byline. Okay, so here again I'm saying, don't be in a hurry that I have to be right up there, I have to be on stage, I have to be recognized in industry affairs. I'm old enough to, I think, counsel people.
of
I
course.
honestly say that people who enter industry association, and I've been on every industry association that our industry has, and some, okay, you have to ask yourself, why am I in this industry association? And the answer just it has to be, I'd like to do something good for this industry from which I have gained, or I am in, and I am here on account of that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm seeing far too many people in our industry associations who probably think they are there to further their own agenda, to be seen up there, to be known as this, that, and the other. Short-term vision.
Right. Your citation, the AFA citation, also describes your role in other associations like the IAA, one more association where you've done phenomenal work. And as the area director APAC, you actually endeared yourself to all the chapters in the region. And one amazing contribution of yours to the collective consciousness of advertisers and marketers, marketing professionals is, that you conceived of and you created the widely acclaimed Olive Crown Awards. And you also told me the story about how you actually went ahead and said, no, let's give it a shot and get it the venue that I want. But just recount that story also. The Olive Crown Awards, it was something that was needed by the hour, but what gave you the idea? And what was that little story on how you really brought it?
13 years ago, the IAA's India chapter was thinking about how do we stand out in this industry, because you have already 3 years of I, you have the advertising club, you have all these people there who are doing an excellent job.
Right.
So why are we here? And what do we do? So I happened to think that, look, this entire thing about sustainability, climate control is an important thing. And 13 years ago, you had not heard about Greta Thunberg. You had not heard of any of these people. But the IAA's managing committee was nice enough to sort of back me and say, go for it, prepare the whole thing and see how to involve marketers and the advertising agencies in this environmental effort.
Right.
And as we all know, the world loves an award. Show me a guy who says, I hate awards and I will show you a liar. So, the idea was that if we have a nice award, that lauds communication excellence in communicating sustainability, it indirectly actually promotes sustainability.
Correct.
So that was the idea. And then after the whole thing was done,
tell me about the first venue.
Yeah. So then the entire media, of course, has always been very, very nice to to us and to me.
Of course.
So the first call for entries was there. Entries came, jury, judged, all set. All we need now is an award ceremony. And 3 well-meaning people and influential people, and I won't name them, on our managing committee said, not to worry, Ramesh, we will be able to find somebody to sponsor. And then all 3 of them, unfortunately, drew blank.
Oh my God, yeah.
So the then IAS head at that time, Kaushik Roy, told me that, look, I think let's postpone this now, Ramesh, because I can't, spend an industry association's money, that I don't have. And he was right. He's a very responsible guy.
Yes.
And he was right.
He's a wonderful guy.
So I said, okay. And that evening, I saw one mailer saying that Goa Fest will be held and this, that, and the other.
Right.
And I said, what a wonderful, platform to, launch the Olive Crown Awards. It even had one big white man there as the kind of chief guest whom I thought I could borrow, and all the agency would be quite happy about it. So I just happened to mention this to my wife and said, I think I've cracked it. I'll ask for these. So she heard me out and said, why do you think the 3 A's of I and the Ad Club would launch the IAA's award in their award scene?
Okay.
So I said, because I'm asking. But more importantly, it's important to have a close, cooperation, collaboration amongst industry bodies.
Absolutely.
And so I asked.
So
And they said yes.
Wonderful.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, really, that was quite a coup actually. I mean, everybody had resigned to postponing it and, putting it off for a year. But then you went on and you got it actually done. And in fact...
And a great place at the Abbey Awards.
Okay. Fabulous.
So
Lovely.
you had the entire creative community there, and they were inspired after that.
And Ramesh, you've been a leader and a spokesperson for, and maybe I would even dare say a custodian of every conceivable association of importance across the country, across sectors and subsectors of advertising, marketing, and the entire professional space associated therewith. And let me just say that you mentioned the AAAs of I. You were president also of the AAAs of I, the nodal body of advertising agencies in India, and you were honored with their Lifetime Achievement Award too. And when? Way back in 2014. That was just, I think, 1 year after the Olive Crown Awards launched. Am I correct in that date? Yeah. And I mean, let me just also tell my listeners and viewers a little more about all the great awards you've got. I mean, look at this. You also got, obviously, the AFA Hall of Fame. That was in 2021. You were inducted into the AFA Hall of Fame. You've been honored with the AFA Special Merit Award at Ad Asia Bali. You've been inducted into the IAA India Chapter Hall of Fame. You've been recognized as a global champion by the IAA at its Inspire Awards in London. And you've been the recipient of the IAA Honorary Membership Compass Award. You were part of a 3-member, and this I really hold very, very important. You were part of a 3-member Supreme Court nominated committee to monitor government advertising in India. What was that experience like? What do you think that your 3-member committee actually managed to help empower, and how it did so, the advertising space in India? Tell us a little about that.
The objective of this was actually to ensure that governments do not, squander money on needless advertising. See, the sort of fundamental difference, between a advertiser whom, all of us know, private advertiser, and them, is that private sector, measures out every rupee and insists on the impact of every rupee. Government thinks it's like printing money. So if some guy just says, you put full page ads of a North Indian political party in the South. This was a case, by the way. And it'll come. And so you have 6 full page ads coming out.
Okay.
And the idea was, who's to pay for this? You and I are paying. And it's not right. So they said that this 3-person committee could actually halt those ads.
Okay.
And say, cease and desist. And it was not from the central government, so that you could at one scream and and say, federalism is now dead and all that. But it's from the highest court of this land
Right. Absolutely.
who
The Honorable Supreme Court.
demands accountability from the governments, all governments, okay, central government, state governments, all of them. So, as an idea, I thought it was excellent.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, implementing it was a little, painful because the government knows, how to, meander along and put the best efforts into a loop if it wants to. But I think that we did actually, do some good. And I'm
Move
sure
fast
there is,
and move beyond thought into action, perhaps.
yeah. And I think ideas like these are good, and they ought to be implemented.
Wonderful. You spoke about the need, like, private advertisers look at what is my return on investment, what is the impact, what is the measurable impact. Obviously, without measurement, you cannot, assess, gauge, evaluate, and plan. So the biggest problem that in the Indian space that I see is the lack of accurate, adequate measurement. Television has BARC. It's an industry body created by 3 responsible entities. And I respect the fact that it's got the thought processes and memberships of the broadcasters, the agencies, the media buyers behind it, right? And BARC has been created. And I think that it can only get bettered 101%. It should be allowed to and be made better with more investments, more people meters, whatever thousands or millions of people meters that you install will not be able to actually accurately, let's say, interpolate the number of the people who watch television in India. But the fact remains that it's a currency created by parties which are, sort of middle of the road or kept middle of the road by the other 2 bodies together. And it is the gold standard today. Whatever anybody might want to say, in private, in public, they pay it the lip service, which actually is the kind of service it deserves. It needs their investment, everybody's investment. Radio, how much do you think it spends on measurements in those 4 cities? The entire radio industry doesn't spend more than 2 to 3 crores, is what I understand, okay, a year, which is a pittance, right? There are big brands that don't want radio to be measured in all the cities because then, what I like to believe and what is actually true will be exposed as being very, very far from each other. The point I'm making is measurement is not complete. I was speaking with Amit Khanna, another great person that I really admire, respect, and I'm privileged to call a friend. And he's one of the creators, if I may say so, exaggerating to make a point, who drafted the kind of progress of the Indian media and entertainment industry. But what I'm trying to say is he also said measurement has to be across every kind of platform at every kind of and every time of day. For instance, Ramesh, you are interested in the news, let's say. I'm sure you are, but you're a person who likes to. So in the morning when you get up, you'll quickly pick the newspaper. Then you will look at your phone. On your way, you might listen to a podcast or just the news on radio, whether it's AM or whatever. FM doesn't allow radio news, as you know. And then when you go on, you get to watch television, people speak, Insta, Facebook, social media platforms keep sharing things. So across the day, your consumption of news continues in your genre, in your mood, and of state of mind and wherever you are. But when you talk about news consumption, every kind of publisher or news creator or platform has its own little shop and wares to peddle. How does a marketer who today, and forget about, as you know, the digital and the traditional marketing, it's like incestuously intertwined now, and they both kind of lead from one to the other, perhaps, right? So the point is, as Parthasena told me that, so find a digital guy will be able to say, I can track you. In the morning you did this, then you were there, then you were over here, and I can reach you here. Yes, you can reach me at a certain point when I'm driving or I'm being driven and I see something, but I'm not in the mood to buy, right? Point I'm trying to make is that the effectiveness of reportage or measurement on consumption of any kind of medium or format or genre rather, depends on complete measurement. What is the industry doing? What should it do to try and get there? God knows the technology is there. My point is, measurement is incomplete. OTT is not even measured. Not one of them is making money, the platforms, right? And you just have to go by what they claim to be doing, numbers, etc. What is the solution? You, Ramesh Narayan, the most awarded person in India, and truly a captain, truly a thought leader who can motivate, bring people along together. What would your wish list be for a rollout if you had carte blanche? Very, very long question, but I just wanted to make my point across. Please.
So let me tell you first of all, is that on the one hand, okay, on the one hand, one feels happy about the fact that even years ago, our industry made the right moves to actually set up all these things, okay, Bark and all these things. Even on the other hand, ASCII, for example, okay?
Yes.
I think our industry led from the front and said
Absolutely.
that we will regulate ourselves. How many people do it? How many other industries do it?
True.
If you talk about all the other industries, none of them have any kind of self-regulatory body like ASCII. So,
absolutely. And I must say that I have the highest regard for ASCII, and especially now, recently, ever since Manisha has taken over. It's amazing, does great work. Yeah, please continue.
what I'm saying, our industry has actually made the right moves. Now, when it comes to, things like even a bar, okay, there was a phase where, things went a little off the rails, and I don't want to go into that, but I'm happy that we have very nice leaders there now who are known for their knowledge and their integrity. I agree with you 100% that measurement is all important only because it's an accountability factor. Okay? If I am paying you anything, I have the right to know, how much of the bang is there for this buck. Now, obviously, on the other hand, I say, see, the human ingenuity will always work a little around all these things.
Sure.
And circumvent it as and when it can. And it does. And we all know those instances.
To massive extents of 20 to 25% of the annual ADEX.
Okay. However, I agree with you. There is a need for all arms of the industry. Okay. Whether it is the advertiser on the one hand, ought to take a lot more interest in it because it's her money, or the media on the other hand, who owes it to the advertiser.
Right.
And of course, the agencies who are apparently studying the media and advising the advertiser.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So all three of them owe it to themselves to actually, get their act together.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to, as you rightly said, OTT, radio, this, that, and many more new things will come. Technology is now throwing up, wonderful new things. And each of these will be, of course, monetized as they ought to be. So I think, yes, there is a need for a little more introspection first, for a while only, because I think, that ought not to take time, but action on these.
Absolutely. Whichever industry event you go to, whether it's a radio event or a television event or a print event or news event or this, that, or the other, okay, they never get up. And after all the discussions and talking heads and, all the wisdom that is spewed across and very smart things said very, very often, they do not end the day with a little agenda of a submission to the government, actionable points. We suggest this is required. We also offer our own services as consultants to the government, as advisors to the government. And we are here to give you whatever intellectual and executionary kind of bandwidth that we have. Never does that happen.
I have
Please.
another take on that. Is that I feel, what is the role of the government in this? Yeah, nothing. And I feel, what? In fact, keep them out and you're okay. All the things that we do are in spite of the government, not on account of the government. And we do not want the government to be looking over us, our shoulders and advising us. Let them, attend to their work. There's a lot of work that they have to do and they have not done. This is what I say in the other, half of my life, the NGO, sector, social sector. I ask one thing, that look, there are so many NGOs, small and big, who are doing a marvelous job. Has anyone actually paused and said, but why are they there at all? If we are doing a pretty good job in about 7 of these municipal schools, we are actually doing the job of the state government. It is their job to do it. Since they don't do it, we do it. If we are doing a job which is appreciated for poor elders inside Mumbai, why are we doing it? Again, it is the job of the government to ensure they have good food, they have good medical facilities. They do not. So it needs us. Why do I spend so much time in 37 villages here and ask about electricity and safe drinking water and all these things? It's not my job really. It is their job. And because they do not do it, we do it.
I'm glad there are people like you who do it. All of us have to do it. It's also a responsibility, I would say, but I respect the fact that, the government cannot just absolve itself of its responsibility. And I don't think it does that also. It needs nudges and prods. For instance, look at ad fraud, for instance. There is so much of ad fraud. I just want to come to that. There are two parts to this, if I may, just to add to what you said. And you were very, very, very right that the industry has to sit up and take notice. You look at ad fraud, two parts to the puzzle or to the whole problem. One is the ignorant marketer who does not understand where and how to catch ad fraud, how to hold an agency accountable, how and what kind of measurement to demand. And the other side, of course, like you said, the industry needs to get together and perhaps, you didn't say this, but it would lead to the creation of better measurement metrics that everybody can use across the board. So both these things have to be done. Corporates and marketing teams are not checking with their own teams. What do you understand about programmatic? What do you understand about ad fraud? What do you know about brand safety? One of the grandfather of all media buying in India told me that 25% of about, ad fraud is par for the course. Anyways, that is his view, and I hold him also in very, very high esteem. So, won't name anybody, but that's what is important.
Small point, may I say though? Small point to interrupt you here. That many years ago, our agency Canco invited HDFC Limited, who was our important client,
Yes.
audit our books every year.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Wonderful.
Meaning entries related to them, of course.
Wow.
Okay? And HDFC Limited did it for around 6 years and said, yeah, I'm sure you are honest now, I've got other things to do.
Amazing. See, that is leading by example. That is the kind of precedent that needs to be set. Years ago, a guy called Chamitro, he used to have something called CSO partners, and they would audit every not-for-profit company's annual results and give awards for that. So, what you've said preceded even that kind of audit of the NGO books. But this is amazing.
Also, I'll tell you that You know, if we had to, conclude a big deal, with the media house or HDFC Life, that was our account. After all the negotiations were done, in my office, you would have, Times of India's, response head. You would have me, and you'll have HDFC Life's CMO.
Okay.
All three. And I stress this point, all three. I think I was, one of the very few agencies who would, do this and iron out all the points of the, of the deal and say,
To get the best possible bang for the buck for your client in
exactly.
front of the CM.
So
Wow.
none of the clients ever, had to look over their shoulder.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Ramesh. Really gives me the goosebumps, believe me, because in today's day and age where people are crying for commissions, and they need to. I mean, businesses have to run, they have to be profitable. But this kind of transparency, this kind of, virtually wearing it on your sleeve as a mission, vision, value, not to show the world, but to internalize within your teams and say, this is how we work. We are good people. We want to and like to work with good people. And that is really an amazing thing. You said that, and this is again another part of the citation, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from the AFA, a recent one, says Ramesh always believes that what is good for business, and you're a strong advocate of using communication as a force of good. So you want to tell me a little bit more about that and why every professional across the spectrum, across sectors, subsectors, verticals, functions, levels, must internalize these two thoughts, right? One, of course, is three thoughts. One is always remain knowledgeable and humble like you are. And the second and the third, I think, is what is good for business, is good for business and using communication as a force for good. Tell me about these three.
I'll start with a very personal thing. It's not exactly the answer to this. I will, come to the answer
No,
in a minute. Throughout my ad agency life, I never asked a client upfront, what is the budget? Our agency was once reported, by a leading, journal as, that it's probably the most, I think, profitable advertising agency at that time in the country. Okay. And still, I reiterate, we had all these people in the room, for every deal. Now, when we went across Asia as a part of the AFA team, we heard everywhere they said that the advertising agency business is having a hard time. We are not able to attract talent.
Okay.
Because we can't afford to pay well. And the advertisers and the marketers, squeeze us. And so we have, absolutely, wafer thin margins, and we aren't able to attract. And also we have a slight image problem. In my acceptance speech of the 3 Years of Eyes Lifetime Achievement Award, okay, I had said this even then. I had a chance to implement a thing last year, though, after all these years, 9 years, is that I had said, even then, people were saying, margins are down, this, that, or the other. And I said, look, here I am on this stage. And on my left is the then 3 Years of Eyes president, Arvind Sharma. And on my right is the kind of president-elect, who will be the next president, Ambi Parmeshwar.
Okay, Ambi.
Okay. And I said, I know for a fact that both these guys are IIM grads. Now, I want to ask you all one thing. That do you think that when Arvind Sharma or an Ambi, got out of an IIM Ahmedabad or an IIM Calcutta, they were not able to get another job? All the IIM grads are 100% placed in good, marketing jobs. Why did these guys and an Anil Kapoor and an Arun Nanda, all these people, why did they opt into the advertising agency line? It was not on account of the money. It was not on account of the fact that they weren't able to get another job. They were excited by the field they were in. And so they came and they did
Right.
well. What is missing now is that the advertising agency line is not seen as an exciting place to be in for young people. On the one hand, you have young people who are now asking hirers, are you equal opportunity hirer? They are asking marketers, are you, kind to the environment? They are asking all these questions and they don't mind paying little extra in order to make sure that all of these aspects are okay.
Lovely.
On the other hand, keep in mind all the brands that you know of, all the brands cover, some good brands that you know of, who actually positioned them in that way? It's the ad agencies.
Absolutely.
Every brand in the world was positioned by an advertising agency. Then why aren't we able to position ourselves?
Right. Beautiful. Well said.
And that is why we came up with the idea of this Change Makers for Good award. Where we say, it's not an advertising agency that, yes, of course, he it's that he also, helps to sell, services and goods. However, think about it. Do you know of any other industry in the world that can change mindsets towards domestic violence and about gender sensitivity? Do you know of any other agency in the world that can actually create messaging that has rid the world of dreaded diseases like, for example, polio? It was not the vaccine. It was not accepted. Advertising delivered the vaccine. If not, you just have the vaccine and you can, store it at home. These are wonderful things that these guys have been doing. And we need to actually highlight those and position our industry people, not as advertising agency, but also change makers for good. We have only 4 awards. It's not, across 18 in the categories and all that.
Correct.
And one of those awards is Game Changer of the Year, Industry Leader. You know why?
Lovely.
Because you immediately think that an advertising agency guy is all about commercials and he will squeeze the media well and he'll do this, that and the other. Tonight, September 1st, you will see the Industry Leader of the Year, Game Changer Award.
Right, at the IIA Awards, yes.
At the IAA Awards. And you will also hear as to what this man has done. Okay? And yes, you know him as XYZ. You know that he was a great, media leader. You know that he heads the largest advertising network in India and in Asia, it seems, South Asia. And he heads 25 organizations. He heads, 10,000 people. But there are a lot of things about him that you will hear that you have not heard. And you should have heard a long time ago.
That's where you just said we do not position ourselves well enough.
Exactly. So
now I've got my answer to the advocacy of using communication as a force for good. Beautifully rounded up. Yeah, absolutely. You were saying something. I'm sorry, I interrupted the last part.
So I feel that we are expected to sell, socks and automobiles and all that. Fine. However, I feel that if we can also highlight the unique, features that are there in our industry and in our individuals in our industry, I feel we will be a more exciting space to work in, and you'll find smart kids running into your office. Just 2 weeks back, the AFA New Age Leadership program was held. 25 kids from our industry, okay, kids meaning under 30, from our industry, were to go on a 3-day, 4-night multi-city tour. It was meant to be experiential, inspirational, all of that is great. And to learn on the way this, that, and the other. And there was a fee fixed for it, of course, because it costs to like spend on all these things. And at the last moment, chairman of the AFA said that, look, if the Advertising Council of India has money, why are we asking them to pay for this? If we are saying this is all about future leaders, shouldn't we be investing in them?
Wonderful.
And the whole thing was made absolutely free of charge. And I
Wonderful.
loved that. And this was actually done by our friend Swami at the last moment.
Mr. Swami is an amazing.
And so these 26 kids had an amazing experience. And I'm sure that they will be able to actually give back, to our industry a whole lot more than what we actually gave back to the industry in this small, gesture of saying that it's free. So we need more of these things, happening in our industry. We need to be attracting youngsters, molding youngsters, but it's not about molding them. It's about, molding our own, future.
Right. Absolutely. Ramesh Narayan, I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation with you. Is there something else you wish I had asked you, or you'd like to add here before I sum up?
A lot of words already.
So Ramesh, I have enjoyed myself. What did you think of your conversation on MVP The Master's Voice podcast?
I have enjoyed myself because all the things that you asked me are all things I've been actually passionate about. So
Wonderful.
I might have talk a little more about it, but not less. In fact, Pawan, in ending, I would like to say that advertising, trade, media have an important role to play in all the things that I actually mentioned earlier, and that you also mentioned. I would like to place on the record that I have always said this openly, that Mediabrief as well as Pawan have been extremely good friends of our industry and have been highlighting the right things in the right way. There's obviously a lot of things that you all can do, but you yourself are a great friend of our industry, and I'm sure that you will in fact lead the charge there. All the very best, Pawan.
Wow, Ramesh, you're very generous, as I always said. Thank you very much. This is very, very precious praise, and we will try to live up to it and come true to your expectations. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
That was the amazing Ramesh Narayan, who needs absolutely no introduction. Leader of media marketing advertising, the single most awarded person in India in all these spaces, from all the multiple industry bodies and associations, government too, who was my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast. I found this conversation extremely insightful, and it is one of our slightly longer episodes, but I still think we could have got so much more. That's the power and the beauty and the humility and the wonderful knowledge and all the insights from his wide and deep experience that only a Ramesh Narayan brings to the table. I hope you found this conversation extremely insightful. I certainly did. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast, this is your host and friend Pavanar Chawla saying, take care, stay safe, remain knowledgeable and humble. Bye-bye.